There we go. 70 people so far. Not a bad number. Taking out all the note takers. Perfect. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to one more session of Smartlead's Office Hours, beautiful people. For those of you who are new, my name is Akash and I am your customer success manager here at Smartlead. As you all know, we have a drill. Before we move on to the guest or to the topic of the session, drop on the comments. You'll see a chat icon at the center bottom of your screen. Click on that, drop it on the comments where you're from, the temperature at your city, and also let us know if you're an agency, a freelancer, or a SaaS company. We'd love to know. Again, center bottom, chat icon, drop on the comments, your city, the temperature in your city, and if you're an agency, a freelancer, or a SaaS company. We'd love to know. There we go. Group chat is empty. First one, Lyle. Love it. Florida, 93, freelancer. Philly, 81, SaaS. Global audience. Hi from Kerala. David, I'm also from Kerala. Chicago, 68, Los Angeles, 66. Global audience, as always. Stockholm, 26. Agency. Love it, Jaffa. Welcome to Office Hours. Toronto, 30. Vienna, 26. Not bad. Beautiful. I don't see the Indian folks yet. Philippines. Perfect. Global audience, as always. Keep the comments coming in. And before I move on to the guest, as for today's topic, as you all know, all of us are doing outbound. And outbound isn't just about sending more emails. It's about sending smarter, right? Because it's personalization, it's utilizing your live triggers. And that's why we have Bharatt here. Bharatt here is going to show us how to turn live data, trigger-based workflows, and personalization into campaigns that actually get you the responses. And a quick intro about Bharatt. Bharatt Arorah is a Clay and Smartlead expert who builds outbound systems powered by real-time data and deep personalization. He's been helping a lot of teams set up and manage GTM motions that feel one-to-one at scale. And that's the most important point. So he's come with his tricks. And as you all know, the whole purpose of these sessions are you have actionable insights to deploy right after the call. So Bharatt, over to you, buddy. A quick round of introduction and the floor is yours.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Akash, for such a great introduction. And thank you so much, everyone, for actually tuning in. We'll all make sure that the session is worth it for you guys. But yeah, so hey, my name is Bharatt. I live in India and I've been doing cold email for the last close to 3 years. I've been like lucky enough to be like an early Smartlead user because I guess Smartlead has been like, has a third birthday as well. So yeah, let's go, guys. But yeah, guys, so today I just want to talk about how outbound is just evolving throughout years because if you're if you're an OG and you've been sending emails for like more than a year and a half, then you probably know that the tricks and stuff you used to implement back then are really different from what everyone is like talking about right now because it's like personalization, triggers, automations, and it's just like how to send emails that feel like personal at scale. So it's like, what if your SDRs were sending manual emails? How could you actually automate and send the same emails at scale? So yeah, we're going to talk about a lot of stuff and some real actionable insights for you guys. But yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that, Bharat. And over to the topic, right? The first one, what we're going to talk about is the modern outbound stack. So, according to you, what is the modern outbound stack and why do we even need it?
Sure. Yeah. And I just have like a little presentation. Can I just share my screen? If that's
Yes,
okay?
please go for it. That's what we need.
Awesome. 1 second. It's like super simple, but might just be helpful. Can you see my screen?
Yes, begin clear.
Awesome. Yeah. So let's just talk about the modern outbound and how outbound is really evolving for a second. Okay. So I just feel like earlier it was just like downloading leads from a database, just plugging everything onto your sequencer or even just sending manually. That was great back in the day. Oops. Yeah, that was great back in the day. But I feel that is really changing as of now because of pretty much two reasons. One, your prospects receive hundreds of cold emails every single day. And it's like the people you are sending out emails to, everyone else is probably sending out emails to the same people. And you know what's the worst part? Your emails look exactly like the emails that everyone else is sending. So it's like, it's really hard to get the attention and it's really hard to get into the eyes of your exact buyers. So just to be able to kind of at least get into the inbox, propose what you're talking about, and then move further, right? Because of course, your offer, your copy, everything matters a lot. But what also matters is, are you even getting in the primary inbox? After that, are your prospects even reading your emails all the way till the very end? And if yes, do they even understand your offer? But also like beyond this stuff, it also matters that do your like even if you send your emails to your prospects, is it the right time for them to be actually having this conversation? Because let's say you offer someone, hey, would you be interested in selling your company, but they're not at all interested, and they've shown no signals of actually selling their company, right? So I think little signals like these or little intent like these can really help you just change the perspective of outbound throughout, right? So just before going on to any actual flows that I've kind of prepared for you guys, I just want to be very upfront and show some before and after email examples, right? So it's like just trying to be like a little vulnerable here. So back in 2023, I guess, when I started offering cold email as a service, I wrote a cold email campaign for myself, which was like zero personalization, no intent. I just downloaded a list from Apollo and just put it into Smartlead and just sent it over to a bunch of leads. And it worked great. But I just want to compare both um, that campaign with a campaign that I probably launched for a customer day before yesterday. And I've kind of just changed and tweaked the details a little bit. So it's like still relevant. But yeah. So if I were to show you, so this was the exact same email I sent in March 2023 when I was actually looking for customers to pitch cold outbound. Because just a little bit background, I before offering cold outbound, I was into a marketing agency, and me and my co-founder was into the service delivery of stuff, and I was pretty much into the business generation. How do we get more leads? Just taking on clients and just closing on clients, right? So this was when I kind of got into cold emails, but after the agency got strike through, and then I just got all in with cold emails because that was the whole thing I did all day every day. So this was the first campaign I launched for myself. So it was like quick question first name, because we all know quick question was probably the hottest thing in the market back then, you know. So hey, first name, I came across your LinkedIn and wanted to reach out personally. We've recently helped a similar company book 10 plus qualified calls with their exact ICP using our proven cold email system. Would it be helpful if I shared a loom on how it works? Now, if there are any OGs in the chat, and you can of course comment down below, but you guys can probably see the structure already, because throughout months and years, everyone is always talking about following a structure, which is something similar to the triple C's, which is like complement, case study, and then a very low friction call to action that they can just kind of agree on. And that was my honest thoughts back then. I'm like, yeah, I can just offer a loom instead of a meeting, and then I'll get a bunch of replies, which is great. And this campaign worked great back then. But if I'm pretty sure if I launch this campaign today, it won't, because the specifics are really lacking in here. So for instance, I can send this exact email to literally anybody. I can send this email to Akash, I can send this to Mike, I can send this to Alex, I can send this to anyone by just changing the first name in the email copy, right? It's not really specific to who they are or what do they do. It's just like, I came across your LinkedIn and wanted to reach out. What did you see on my LinkedIn that made you reach out to me? You know, so it's like people have really observed the pattern over years, and they've kind of understood that this is an email blast, and nobody likes to read an email blast. You know, people really love if it's a handwritten email to them, which of course it won't be handwritten, but it will feel like handwritten, right? So now let me just show you an email copy I wrote for a customer. The customer is like in some different industry, but I've just tweaked that to like, I've tweaked the similar framework to a similar campaign like this for lead generation. And I can just show you. So this was written on 22 July 2025. The subject line was question about Pied Piper. Just for some more context, Pied Piper was a case study of the prospect that I was reaching out to. So I had an AI go to their website, scroll through the case study section, scrape it, and then scrape the details of the entire case study, and then a bunch of other prompts. So again, question about Pied Piper. So let's say you work with a company named Pied Piper and you help them generate some XYZ results, and you get an email saying, question about your client name. It is at least a little bit more exciting than quick question first name, you know? Then it's like, hey, first name, saw the redesign you did for Pied Piper's site and how their bounce rate dropped by 18% after launch. So this exact sentence was generated by AI after scraping the case study section on the prospect's website, which is just like a good email opener just to have like pique their interest that this email was actually written by a person, and it's like you're not part of an email blast or something like that. Then if I could help you build outbound systems to reach out to similar B2B SaaS companies in the valley, would it be helpful? So instead of saying similar companies, I'm being very specific. Would it be helpful if I helped you reach out to similar B2B SaaS companies in Silicon Valley? And this is the exact ICP or the target audience that they want to go after. And again, it's like scraped from their website and a bunch of other things, which I'm just going to show you later in this in the session. But so it just, the goal of any outbound campaign in my head is like just to be as specific as possible. So we can be like, if I were to, let's say, write just one email to just one person and I had to manually research about that person, let's say I have an offer for a SaaS company and I have to reach out to a VP of marketing. I'd go to LinkedIn, I find out one VP of marketing that really fits of the criteria that I want to be reaching out to. Then I write one manual email to him, like take 10 minutes, research his website, research his LinkedIn, research everything about him. Then I write that in a Google Doc, and then I turn on my engineering wizard, which is like, how do I reverse engineer this to send 10,000 emails at once, but following this exact same structure, right? So it's like, that was what I thought. So if I say something like, hey, I know you work with a company called Pied Piper and you really help them. Would it be helpful if I help you reach out to similar B2B SaaS companies in the Valley, right? So that was my thought process. Then I was like, let me know and I'll share 50 qualified SaaS marketing leads. So again, SaaS marketing leads is just like from that personalization. And this 50 qualified leads is like, as soon as someone replies yes or positively, something like that, I have a flow in Anytin that kind of just triggers. And thanks to Smartlead's API, it's like making it very, very convenient. But I have like everything in there. Then we just have the AI agent go through the website, figure out 50 leads, scrape Apollo, share a CSV to that lead in Smartlead, and then we can just kind of take the conversation forward, right? And just as a cherry on the top, it's like in the PS line, I'm saying, if Richie is a better person to chat with this, just let me know and I'll loop them in. And Richie is this Lead's co-founder who kind of also deals a little with, let's say, business development or lead generation. And it's just like also saying that this is the exact criteria I'm reaching out for. But if your co-founder is a better person to chat, just let me know and I'll reach out to him, something of that sense. So that is how I feel outbound is like kind of changing, because without going any further, even if you just compare these two emails, you can kind of already see that AI is kind of really taking a shape in this,
Absolutely. And we've got questions from the chat regarding your workflows and your Anytin. So I hope you would be showing that in a couple of minutes, if I'm not wrong, Bharat.
Sorry, which ones?
The workflows as to how the process is done. You gave us the core of it as to you're using AI to get these information involved. But if you can also show us as to how it's done, that would be really helpful.
Of course. This is just to kind of show you guys the intro of what are the fundamentals. And now, instead of just giving you these templates, I'd actually show you guys how do you really personalize your campaigns to any template you'd want to, right? So let's say this is
100%.
based on, let's say, case study on their website or the ICP they're targeting, or we can even do like competitors or whatever. I kind of show you the overall framework, how you can kind of go about doing any personalization and any triggers. But yeah, that's the overall goal. So for sure. And of course, if you have any
Awesome.
questions, keep dropping in the chat and I'll try to answer as soon as I can. I'm just trying to find the chat in here. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll do it for you, Bharat. And as of now, right, the main one has been the workflows. So if we can show that, I think a lot of us would be that would be beneficial for a lot of us. Let him cook.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Welcome to the session mode.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Cool. So just regarding this like earlier, it was just like a database and a sequencer or even manual sending. But right now we have like a variety of tools and technologies that kind of power us to have this modern outbound at scale. And there are honestly so many tools that each tool would individually need like a complete session where we're like going and doing a complete walkthrough and stuff. But right now, my only goal is to talk a couple minutes about every single tool. So you can at least have an idea, because I just feel like as a good cold emailer or as a good go-to-market engineer, your job is not to really master every tool. Even if you just knew when to use what and what really happens when you use it and why to use it, I think you're already better than most people because you now know the crux of when to use stuff, right? But let's just start with some technologies that are listed in here and I'll just speak out for a minute about it and then we can go about it. Okay.
Sure.
So the first company is Apollo.io, of course, and probably most of you guys have already heard about it. It's a great B2B database, but in case someone has not till yet, Apollo.io is like probably the biggest B2B data set out there in which we can kind of scrape the firmographic data in terms of what industry is the company in, what job title about the person, employee size, location, and bunch of other stuff. It's like probably hundreds of millions of rows just lying around in Apollo, and you can kind of easily scrape through that. So Apollo has been there since years and years, right? Earlier, it was just like people using Apollo to send out directly, but now we have like a bunch of other workflows that I'm just going to show you combined with Apollo, which is like we take leads from Apollo, plug into Clay, Anytin, or whatever the entire source is, and then we kind of reach through the overall process, right? But talking about the next tools, so Apollo's data is pretty much based on, I'd say, LinkedIn. So let's say if there's a marketing agency or there's an IT service company that's existing on LinkedIn, there's a very high chance it would be on Apollo. But let's just take a very important case of list building right here. Let's say if you were to reach out to companies which are not on LinkedIn, because there might be companies not on LinkedIn, right? So I'd say something like, let's say gyms, or let's say yoga studios, or let's say boxing clubs, right? Or let's say just roofers, plumbers. They don't need to be on LinkedIn because they don't get their leads through LinkedIn, and LinkedIn is not helpful for their business generation. So that's the reason why I would love to have like a stack of tools in my belt to actually scrape. So the best ideology I use in here is to scrape leads directly from the source where people are marketing themselves. So for instance, if I was Jim, I would for sure want to market myself on Google Maps, right? And that's the reason I would want to scrape Google Maps if I were to, let's say, scrape, let's say, gyms. So I would simply, let's say, just to show you guys, do a Google search, gyms in New York City, scroll a little, go to this business sections, more businesses, and we already have a bunch of leads. Now you can either use instant data scraper or whatever data scrapers you have for website crawlers and already scrape this. And these have like pretty much everything. They have like website, the phone number, the email address in some cases as well, because these businesses really get the leads from this, right? So that is one. But let's say if you were to actually automate this a bit, right? So let's say there's this tool called Serper.dev. It's like pretty much a Google search API. So whatever you can do by Google searching, you can do in Serper as well. So just to kind of demo real quick, I'm just on the website Serper.dev, scroll a little, and we have this little test box in here, right? We have a bunch of APIs. If I just go to the Maps API, and let's say I just search in gyms in the New York City. Hit search. Oops, this is some captcha, probably the hardest part. Ah, as outbound isn't hard, captchas are. Yeah, cool. So we already see, like, just using this, we can get name of the gym, the address, pretty much all the stuff. We also get like the reviews and ratings they have on there, which we can kind of also leverage. So let's say you write out to a gym saying, hey John, so Rich left a review on your site saying your website didn't load properly. Would you want a new website design or something like that? Or would you want a better website? Something like that, right? And we also have like the website, so we can kind of enrich the person's email and that kind of stuff, right? That is one. But also just to have like it done very, very quicker, there's this database called D7 Lead Finder, which is like super simple. Just add in the keyword gyms, pick in the location, either put one city or put like a bulk search, which is like top 100 cities in the US, and just hit fetch leads. And it would take a couple minutes, like probably 10 minutes or something. And it would give you downloadable CSVs for more than 20,000 actual leads that you can reach
Wow.
out to. And these are like very high intent leads, because think of it, a lot of people just use Apollo. Not a lot of people use other tools like D7 Lead Finder or the other ones that I'm just going to show you, right? So these are the leads that people are not reaching out to very much. And just from experience, whenever I'm reaching out to companies which are from other sources like D7 or Built With or whatever I'm just going to show, they're like so much high responses. But yeah, let's just go over the other tools really, really quickly so we can actually go into the Clay stuff and get our
Awesome.
hands dirty. But yeah.
And just two quick questions here, Bharat. Couple of questions on the chat. The first one was, since you've been doing this for a lot of people, this is from EA. On that B2B data, does anybody have a tip for something with B2B data in China? Because Apollo does not really cover that market. So for China, B2B data, would you have some recommendations? Have you used Apollo for China? And how does it work?
That's interesting. Honestly, just on top of my head, I haven't really reached out to a lot of people in China, first of all, because
Mhm.
whenever I'm reaching out, it's just like always US, UK, Canada, Australia, and probably
Right.
German region. But I would just give some suggestions. So let's say the Chinese companies, so let's say uh, the marketing companies or the SaaS companies, there must be some source where they're actually marketing themselves. Just the thing I covered for the Google Maps thing, right? Because if
Mhm.
there's a company, there must be marketing themselves. So I would probably go after scraping from directly the source, which I don't know just right now, but I can of course check back later and then see. But
Right.
I would just say if you can just scrape directly from the source, that would be really helpful, because either they might be running ads somewhere,
Mhm.
or they might be good at SEO, or you can just directly scrape from Google using Serper or something like that, you know? So that's what
Understood.
I'd say.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And one more question from Johanna. So we have been using Zoom. We have Zoom Info, and the accuracy of the information is not good. We've worked with Apollo in the past and works less efficient than Zoom Info. What are your thoughts, Bharat?
Yeah, for sure. So Apollo, Zoom Info, and so many of these other databases, we're not using these databases as the final source of information. We're only using it to source the contacts. So let's say if I use Zoom Info or Apollo, I just download a CSV, put it into Clay, which I'm just going to show the entire process in a bit.
Mhm.
And then we're just going to enrich every bit of information real time. So let's say, is this person new in the role? Did this company recently raise a funding, or did this company recently onboard a new VP of marketing, and things like that, right? And even let's say the firmographic data we can directly scrape from LinkedIn, but just to have some source or some entry point. That's the reason I prefer going to databases like Apollo, Zoom Info, even the Clay database, so we can have some information about these people, and then we can kind of scrape, enrich, and then build flows on top of it. But yeah.
Understood. Understood. And one last question, Bharat. For a software company, very niche industry, continuing education providers, would Apollo be a fit, or do you have any other recommendations?
Sorry, can you go again? Software companies
Yeah,
targeting.
software company, very niche industry, continuing education providers, for example, CE, CME, ACME providers. What would you recommend?
Hmm. So I think whenever I'm building any list, the first source I just go to is probably Apollo. Just look
Mm-hmm.
at Apollo in terms of, does it have enough leads? If it
Right.
has, just start off. So probably like the lowest hanging fruit, right? So you can at least
Mm-hmm.
start sending some emails, you can verify and validate some campaigns. But after Apollo, so there are some databases. So let's say I'll give you an example. So I don't know exactly what database in this case as well, but let me just give you an example. So I was working with a customer 2 months from now, and they wanted to reach out to all the lawyers and the law firms in the UK. And in Apollo, they were not a lot. They were just like 100 law firms, or like the criteria of the law firms that they wanted to reach out to in, let's say, Manchester, they were like
Right.
that was a very small list. So what we really did was, we went to the official government directories of Manchester to find out
Right.
what are the law firms registered in this place, and then we scraped the names directly from there, brought everything onto Clay, enriched their domain using the Clearbits free integration, which is like domain name, company name to domain name, and then we kind of scraped their website, and then a bunch of other integrations on top of it. So I think for data like this, it's probably like a little bit more custom flows rather than just using Apollo or databases like these, because I've kind of seen that in most cases they're not present. And even if they're present, it's like a very small list that you can just kind of experiment and validate the campaigns, but it won't make a difference, honestly. So I'd
True.
suggest custom for this.
Understood. And I promise this is the last question for the segment. What's the best lead source for e-commerce brands? Do you have a recommendation, Bharat?
Of course, of course. E-commerce, probably also a very good suggestion for the next slide, but also I'd say store leads. So store leads is probably, think of it like a database. Like Apollo is for LinkedIn, store leads is for, I'd say, e-commerce. There's no comparison, I get it, but I'd say store leads is probably the best database we have for e-commerce data. And if you can just kind of add in your filters, and it's like super simple to use store lead. So that is the thing I'd recommend. But also, just for this question, let's just go to the second, like the next slide. There's also a thing called technographic data. So it's like, whenever companies use some specific technologies, those
Mhm.
technologies have a particular pixel that is attached to somewhere on their website, and these web crawlers or web scrapers can actually detect it, right? So let's say e-commerce brands, they're probably using Shopify already. So let's say Built With is a company which is like scraping and giving us technographic data in terms of what company is using what technologies and what tools. So let's say I go to Built With, I just search, and luckily just Shopify in this example as well. So I just search Shopify and I download companies using Shopify in the US or in a particular city. That's like all the websites that have the Shopify pixel installed on the website. And that's like already a great source to begin with. But I would, of course, enrich that a little just to see, like, is it really an e-commerce store? Because sometimes a lot of people have their own e-commerce stores, because last time I was prospecting like last week ago or something. So callofduty.com has an e-commerce store as well. And we don't want to be reaching out to them, right? So it's like, just have that as a source of list, then enrich. But yeah, so it's like for e-commerce, I'd say store leads and Built With for the Shopify pixel is probably the best thing you can go for.
Perfect. We have our
Cool.
answer. Over to you, boss.
Cool, cool, cool. So this was again Built With for the technographic data. If you go to the next slide, which is like Crunchbase. Crunchbase is probably like just the company signal data and the company funding data, company recent news data, and it's like pretty good database, right? So I just want to name these real quick so we can kind of just get our hands dirty as soon as possible. But yeah, after this we have like Trigify. Trigify is like a very interesting tool, because think of it, right? Most people are just scraping from a database like ZoomInfo, Apollo, or stuff like that. Let's say if you were able to reach out to people, let's say if you were to reach out to all people who have engaged with a post that was about any particular topic, let's say cold email. Let's
Mhm.
say I put in the keywords cold email, put the date range last 14 days, add in the job titles and a bunch of filters. Now I have a list of all the people who've engaged, either liked or commented on posts which were related to cold email or mentioned cold emails on their on the entire post content, right? So it's like pretty interesting. And while we're talking about Trigify, there's another thing which isn't in the presentation, but I have in my head is like, there's this other company, Scrapely, which helps you kind of scrape competitors' followers on LinkedIn, which is kind of interesting as well, right? So it's like people are usually like scraping competitors' followers, like the LinkedIn profiles of the competitors, scrape their followers, and then reach out to them in some particular way. Like, don't of course say, so you follow this company, but just use that as an intent. So let's say if someone follows Clay, or let's say someone follows Smartlead, they probably be doing cold emails, right? So I'd think about in that way as well. But yeah, just wanted to kind of cover that as well.
Oh, interesting. Interesting take.
The next thing I have is probably RB2B, which is like not exactly outbound, but I'd consider this as inbound led outbound. So it's like the anonymous website visitors you have on your website, you can kind of track them, de-anonymize them, and then kind of reach out to them by enriching their emails and stuff. And these are like really high intent leads, right? Because if someone, and you also know what page of your website were they on. So let's say if someone is on the pricing page of your website, and versus someone who's just about in the about section going through the free resources, you know what person to send out what email, right? So you can kind of score your leads, have different flows for every single page, and then reach out. But yeah, just wanted to cover this as well because it's probably really blowing up at the moment because people are just like reaching out to the people who are already familiar about them, and it's like an easy close, I'd say, right? Then just a couple quick mentions: N10, Apify, Rapid API, and Serper. So we already saw a bit about Serper for the Google Maps and Google API thing, but let me just quickly go about this. So N10 is probably the workflow automation tool that you're already aware of, which is like it helps you connect APIs with each other and build AI workflows and stuff. And I think I also have one AI workflow. Sorry, am I audible?
Yes, loud and clear.
Oh, yeah, sorry, my mic was like showing some light. Okay, cool. So I think I also have one N10 workflow for you guys in the overall Clay table I'm just going to show. So that would be like really helpful. And Apify and Rapid API are like the marketplaces of APIs that you can kind of just rent and leverage, right? Because let's say if you were to build out something from scratch, it would take like a huge effort. It would, and it is not even worth it for just one campaign. So you already have APIs pre-built, which is like scrape LinkedIn ads, scrape Facebook ads, and already have like Instagram scrapers, Apollo scrapers, and a bunch of other things. So I just recommend you guys just log in and just keep scrolling until you find something that is interesting for your use case. Okay. Then, of course, we do have clay.com, which is probably the mastermind where I kind of structure all my campaigns. And just after these last two slides, I'm just going to go into clay.com to show you a couple campaigns. But this is where we actually pair things like enrich emails, find emails, personalize things, score leads, and then just send everything directly to our sequencer, which is probably the next slide, our very lovely sequencer, smartlead.ai. So again, all of the campaigns we run are on smartlead.ai just because it is very easily compatible with all the other tools I'm running. And it's like probably the best tool for highest deliverability, and it just works, guys, right? So now I just want to take you guys to clay.com. But before that, if you guys have any questions, please let me know, and then we can kind of go into the actual flows.
So one thing is if we can give a quick recap of all the tools we saw right now, Bharat, because I think there's a confusion in the chat, that would be really helpful.
Of course, of course, of course. So depending upon the intent or the type of leads you want to be reaching out to, there are multiple databases and multiple sources that I'm just naming out there. So you can kind of have that in your brain. And if you're reaching out to any of these prospects, you can kind of go and research a bit. Apollo, just B2B data set out of LinkedIn. Then we have like D7 Lead Finder, which is Google Maps scraper. Like it's like a database based out of Google Maps data. And you can also do the same thing with Serper. So it's like Serper is like a lot more like Google searches, Google Images, Google News. But this was just an example to show you guys about the Google Maps thing. Then we have built with, which is the technographic data. So what company is using what technology on their website and things like that. Crunchbase, I'd probably use for funding data. Like if there's a SaaS company, when did they raise the last round, and things like that, right? Like recent news and mergers, acquisitions, that kind of stuff. Then we also have Ocean.io that I think I probably missed earlier, but I can go about it right now. So Ocean.io is probably the lookalike database, and think of it like this way in simplest terms ever. Let's say you already have a list of your existing customers or your best customers, and instead of going after a new market, you just want to replicate those exact customers and sign more customers, right? So otherwise it would take like go to databases, do a bunch of things. But with Ocean, just put in the domains of your existing customers or your best customers or the people or the kind of leads you're interested in as well, and it would find you the kind of companies who are like exactly the same like the other companies based on their website data, the keyword data, and a bunch of other things. So I just think of it as the lookalike thing. So put in your accounts, put in your contacts, and then you can kind of do a bunch of things regarding the lookalikes for that as well. Yeah, it's great that we actually went over the list again, so we kind of covered Ocean as well. Then Trigify was like the social scraping and social engagement thing, which is like scrape every single person who engaged with a particular topic on LinkedIn. So let's say cold emails, let's say B2B sales, or let's just say general things like YouTube marketing or stuff like that, right? Then RB2B is like website de-anonymization. If there are, let's say, 1,000 website visitors on your site this week, hypothetically, and if you have RB2B's pixel installed on your website, you will be able to enrich 70 to 80% of those anonymous website visitors on your website. And then you can kind of enrich their emails and then reach out to them saying something, you know. So let's say if someone is on your free resource page, you can actually send them like a mini course or a free resource you have for them, and then kind of take the conversation forward for the closing, that stuff. N8N workflow automation like Zapier, Make.com. And I'm just going to go into N8N for a real flow. So we'll kind of leave it in here. Apify, we're actually going to go into Apify as well, but it's like the API data, like it's like marketplace for APIs, and we've already seen Serper. Then we have like Clay, which we're really going to dive into. And then we have like Smartlead. So yeah.
Awesome.
Do we have any questions, or can we get our hands dirty?
Just give me a minute. There's a lot of conversation happening on the chat, but there we go. Akash has been proactive there. Thoughts on wellness industry. I think maybe you can move on, Bharat. I think we'll have the floor open for questions. It's better that way. People can ask their questions directly to you. So please go ahead.
Of course. Cool. So I have, let me just move this real quick. Yeah. So I have a couple of things in Clay that would be exciting to show you guys. Let's just start with personalization. Let's just start with personalization first of all. So the kind of campaigns that we saw already, we can kind of go a little deeper into those, and we can see how do you really personalize any campaign to any personalized custom line that you can really leverage in your campaigns. Okay. So this is just a CSV I imported directly from Apollo like a couple hours ago, and it's not really built yet, and I'm just going to build it live in front of you guys. Okay. So we have a CSV in here. All I've done with this is like just Apollo CSV. I've just validated the emails that we already get from Apollo using debounce. If we found a valid email, that's great. And then I'm using lead magic to find the emails that were not validated, or the valid email was not found from Apollo's email. And then we're like just aggregating that into master email column, just to have like a little bit bigger email list. And of course, you guys can go way deeper, like add in things like Prospeo, Find Email, and all the other email providers you guys love. And you can kind of have like a big waterfall of email tools. And similarly for phone numbers, but I'm just an email nerd, so I'll talk about emails. So we can have like a master email column aggregating all of the things. So one, we validate the emails we had already. Two, we find the emails that were not present in the database. Doesn't matter. Apollo, store leads, whatever. Then we use other providers on top of it to find out emails that were not found still. And then we can kind of really have like a little bit longer email list. And if I just add a filter, which is like, if email if the master email actually exists, right? So it's like, now let's really get into some of the intent and signal stuff. So if you just go to add enrichments and you type in enrich company, you add in the enrich company URL, and just for the sake, I'm just adding master email column right in here. Just gonna run this for all of these rows. Cool. So it's queued, and what it really does, it's like it's scraping all the information about this particular company's LinkedIn that you'd find on LinkedIn's UI, and then you can kind of either use that directly or use some other data points on top of those things, right? So let's say, let me just open up some of this. Now it has like a little, yeah. So let's say this is the LinkedIn description about this particular company. We can kind of add this as a new column, and based on this description, because this is probably the most accurate description that they guys have written, we can kind of personalize our emails just from this. And I'm talking about, like, let's say custom first lines. So let's say someone says, hey, we're a marketing agency based in Austin, Texas, and then um, let's say someone says we're a marketing agency based in Austin and we help B2B SaaS companies do XYZ. Now we can use our AI, go to that site, go to that information and leverage a line saying something like, hey, John, saw you help B2B SaaS companies do XYZ. And it's like just creating a bit of familiarity with that. And that's where I would really use that. And we're just going to go into more advanced AI prompts as well. But just to show you the earlier thing you asked. So, what if the database of Apollo and Zoom info is not accurate? I'd say after you enrich that within these clay tables, this is probably really accurate, and you can even verify that by just going to this LinkedIn's company page, and you'll probably get like a little bit better data. Okay,
Right.
so now let's just also dive in a little more into having our own AI scrape some information about them. Okay, so just go to add actions, go to use AI, and the best part about Clay as of now is you don't even have to write long prompts. You can just write simple English that I'm just going to paste in here, and it's like probably the simplest thing I've ever seen, which is like, I will input your company's site, you need to go through it and analyze what this company do, and who do they sell, what do they offer, how do they help their prospects. You need to output a detailed description about this company under 1000 words, and this is the website, right? This is all I'm saying about to this AI agent or this AI prompt column, and I just hit generate.
Right.
Now Clay will automatically write a good enough long enough prompt that would actually be super helpful, and we can actually see that the prompt is really taking its shape, right? We just wrote plain English, and it's like writing the exact structure that the AI would demand to help the best. Now we can kind of select the AI models. A lot of people like using Claude, a lot of people like using Gemini, a lot of people use other models like DeepSeek and stuff. But just from my personal experience, I've seen if you use GPT-4o mini, that is probably the model that I think has the best balance in terms of cost and the output and the quality of outputs, right? Because let's say if you use GPT-4o, again, the quality would be better than GPT-4o mini, but it would be like, let's say, 10 times more expensive, right? So just so if you're doing outbound at scale, I'd say GPT-4o mini is probably like the best fit or the best balance you guys can really use after this call. But yeah, so I'd say GPT-4o mini in here at the very end, it already has like filled a bunch of information. I'd just add only run this if we already have an email. So just so we don't waste any credits and just be like really saving the cost in Clay as well. Now this is queued. Let's just wait for a couple seconds.
And in the meantime, Bharat, in the meantime, one question from Sayan is he's heard Eric talk a lot about you doing the pilot campaigns in Growth Engine. Could you share a bit about the quick inbox setup and list building for these test campaigns?
Sure. Okay. So it's like let me just take a step back and let me just talk in general about what are the infrastructure I would recommend for just running cold email campaigns if you guys have to make sure if it is even worth it for you guys, right? So let me just dive a little bit about the infrastructure until this thing is running and I can just keep this entire thing loading until then, right?
Right.
So there are primarily there are primarily three categories in infrastructure that are really to be there. One is just G Suite inboxes, which are like Google Workspaces. The second one is Outlook, which is Microsoft 365. And the third one are custom SMTP, right? So there are like a bunch of other tools like already who've kind of cracked the SMTP thing. And you can, if you're like really technical and a developer, you can kind of host your own SMTP. But I don't think that's worth it because SMTPs are like always in the borderline according to me. So it's like if let's say if you were to run a campaign, deliverability is probably the thing that you just want to be sure that at least I'm hitting the inbox and you just want to experiment on the offers, right? So if you're just starting out, I won't recommend looking out at SMTP. It's like I know it's a lot cheaper, but I just recommend just invest into the infra, guys. It's probably the lowest hanging fruit and it's probably the least thing you can actually invest in, right? So just get in the actual good infrastructure. So I'd say start off with a mixture of Google and Outlook. So for Google, I would recommend either buying directly from Google Workspace or there are like tons of other um, actual legit Google resellers. And we also have like smart senders, which is probably the best thing because earlier we had to kind of go through a bunch of different processes, like manage different vendors, manage a bunch of things. But now we have like smart senders who can already manage the inboxes for us, which is probably the best part. Then I'd say let's also add in a bit of Outlook inboxes or the Outlook infrastructure. So just add in some Microsoft 365 inboxes on top of some domains. And I would personally recommend taking Google in a larger volume because over years, I've seen Google is probably the most scalable infrastructure I've seen across all the campaigns. And second comes Outlook, and the third one is probably SMTP. So Outlook is still always in waves. Like sometimes it's very good, sometimes like a little dipping. So if you were to start a campaign for your company today and you need to see if cold email is worth it for your company or not, I'd say set up 10 GoDaddy domains, 30 Google inboxes on top of those, like 3 inboxes per domain. Just use Smartlead, use Clay, and just pull up a very simple personalized angle, which is like, hey, first name, personalized line, your offer, and then some resource you can offer. That is a campaign that I recommend you can launch today. And within, let's say, within the next 5 6 days, depending on how many emails you're sending, you can get some insights and then you can kind of tweak that a little bit in terms of adding in more angles or just changing the targeting a little bit, and then you can kind of experiment a bit. So what I look at it is like launching 7 campaigns and then looking at what are the 3 top most performing campaigns and then just going all in with those. So that is pretty much what I'd recommend with the infrastructure.
Understood. Thank you so much for that. And he had a follow-up question, which is, do you get warmed up inboxes from Zapmail to launch these campaigns ASAP? So I think that kind of falls back to the urgency, Sayan. If you have time to get your mailboxes, warm it up, and then launch a campaign, go for that. But whereas if you want pre-warmed inboxes or if you're in short of time, then go for this approach. You can right away kickstart with the campaigns.
Exactly, yeah. So if you're running it for your company, I'd say it depends how urgent is it or are you already prepared with the campaigns. But let's say if we're talking about outbound agencies or lead generation people like me, so we already have some generic domains and generic name inboxes that we already have bought and have been warming for like months, right? So let's say I'd buy 300 or like 1,000 domains from some registrar, and they're like set up Google inboxes on top of it, and they're just warming for months and months, right? So let's say I were to launch a free test campaign for someone, I would just ask them if they'll be okay to actually run a free test on some other name. So instead of using their SDR's name on their sales leader's name, I'd use some other name that is already warmed up for like months. Then we'll run the campaign. And if we think that it is worth it for them, then we'll set up the infrastructure for them as well. So that is a strategy for outbound companies. But if you're just doing it for your own company, I'd say it really depends, just like Akash said. So yeah.
Understood. Over to you, boss.
Awesome. So yeah, just as we saw. So some of these companies in LinkedIn don't have like a very detailed description because it's just subjective on how people describe their company on the LinkedIn description, right? So instead of that, we can send the AI to their website, scrape exactly the information that we want from that, and then we can kind of have and do a bunch of other things on top of it. So this is, I'd say, whenever I'm writing prompts or structuring cold email personalizations, I write it in steps. One is like the research agent, which is going and scraping data. The second is like the content manipulation AI, which is taking that data and forming the sentences or the type of lines that we'd actually like to write, right? So this was something that I just wanted to show you. But let's say, let's say I were to see some angle. So let's say some people are always writing cold emails campaigns around, hey, I saw you're hiring for an SDR. Does that mean, are you also looking for lead generation service? So like something around that sense, right? So it's like using this. So let's say find active job roles. So if a company is hiring for a particular person or it's expanding its headcount growth in some particular department, that just generally means growth of the company. And you can use that as a signal to kind of reach out, like either mention that or just use that as a database kind of thing. But let me just kind of see in here. So we can kind of add in job titles already. So let's say, oops, yeah, let's say we just put in marketing and then we add in just the location, and we can of course be like very specific, like VP of marketing, chief marketing officers, of course not such senior, but also software developers and stuff like that, right? And the second table I have is like very specific to job openings and from Apify and stuff, so we can always get into that. Then we'll add in the company's LinkedIn URL. Then we'll add in the condition only run if the master email column exists that we enrich through the waterfall. Just wait for it for a couple seconds. Cool. So it's like none of these companies are hiring for this particular role, and we can always run for the entire list. And it just depends, right? Because not every company, and right now we were like just throwing away some things, and this was like probably just a list I exported from Apollo, and they might not be hiring for marketing roles in the US as of now. So we can be very specific right here, but let's say I just remove the filters and just run it. And until then, let me also show you the things that were in the past example that I showed you, right? So let's say, let me just pull out some text real quick.
And while you do that, so, Bharatt, one common question, taking a step back, picking it from the chat. So you might get this a lot, how to reach the Microsoft leads. Because at this point, as you know, in the market, people are finding it hard to reach to Outlook inboxes. And do you have any recommendations on that?
So that is a great question, I'd say, because I think Outlook's deliverability is like always, again, in waves. Like even if you find something to actually be like, we're hitting Outlook, in 3 months, you might not be, right? So I would just really say, always just keep sticking to the fundamentals, like have your, of course, the basic DNS stuff ready, but also keep experimenting with the mixture of Google and Outlook senders I recommended earlier. And then let's say if you're reaching out to a particular TAM and let's say you send out emails for like 3 months, I assume that your inboxes might already be like burning out a little. So I'd recommend to just have like other inboxes who are like warming already, or just switch inboxes and always keep sending from fresh inboxes, which is a thing that really, really, really helps, right? Because again, Outlook deliverability, I think, is like always changing, because something I'd say today might not be the same for like the next month or something. Because
Absolutely.
last month, I think we really managed to land in the primary inboxes for Outlook. But as of today, it's like still somewhere around 60-70%, because we're still experimenting on a couple of stuff. And that is when the custom SMTP portion of it comes, because I am kind of testing a custom SMTP, like not using any providers, but something, setting up a server on my own and actually sending and tracking of these emails. So I think that is sort of helping me a little bit, but we're still experimenting with that. So I'd say that is something that I won't really want to comment on, because I don't really have like a winning idea already. But yeah, we can always get back on that.
Absolutely. And let us know how your experiment goes. We'd love to know.
Of course, of course, of course. So yeah, just I ran this like overall, and we found like multiple jobs in some of these companies, and we get in the company name, we get the title they're recruiting for, the message marketing coordinator, we get the description of the job. And if I just scroll down, we also get like a little bit insights on the location, the salary, and a couple of other things, right? Like, is this full time? Is this part time, contractual, whatever? Now, what we can also do is actually personalize based on this job description, but that's like for the second campaign that I'm just going to show you for the Apify thing. And I just wanted to dive in that these are the angles that you can actually add in through Clay enrichment, and you can kind of just have so many things. Because if you just go to add enrichment and just go to all sources, there are probably hundreds of sources that you can actually dive into and really experiment with, right? So I take it to you guys for actually experimenting, but let me just show you some of the personalizations that I promised you guys, right? So if you go to use AI and oops, yeah, and just again type it in plain English as if you're explaining to a person. And let me just also read it for you guys. This prompt is actually to find case studies on a prospect's website. So let's say I'm reaching out to these companies. I would want to scrape case studies from their website to actually be able to mention or call out that in an email. So I'd say something like, find a case study for the following company. Here's their website. And then I just kind of explain a little in terms of where does the case study pretty much lie on the website, just so yeah, has some context, which is like our work, case studies, testimonial, portfolio, or something around that. And then I just give it a little bit context. Then I just kind of add in some guidelines. Do not change or modify the original sentence. And yeah, I'm just fixing the formatting a little bit, but just 1 second. And if we just hit generate, again, just as we saw for the company description, the AI will already really shape this thing, and we can kind of see a good angle coming in. And yeah, I just really hope some of these companies actually have some case studies, because I haven't really checked on this list. Because so it's like, it depends, right? Also, what prompts you're targeting. Let's say I have a list of companies and I'm searching for case studies on their website. But let's say I have 10 companies and none of those actually have case studies on the website. It would just say none, right? So that really depends. But, and I've also kind of put in here, if you can't find the case study, just output none, just so we are able to filter that out from the rest of the emails. And we don't say, so you worked with none, right? So that would be weird. But let's say I just add in the same criteria and I change the model again to GPT-4o mini. And let's say I just run it for all the ones, just to be hoping some of these companies at least have the case study on the site. And if they don't, we'll for sure try on a different list. I don't want to keep you guys on hanging. Also, until that, let me run one more prompt. Let me just show you. Yeah. So until that, let's just also schedule one more prompt. So if the case study is absent, or let's say we are unable to find the case study, I don't want to disqualify the lead already. I want to at least say something now. That is the reason I'd probably say a different fallback prompt, which is something like, if the case study is not found, say something like, hey, I was on a site and saw you do XYZ, or saw you help marketing managers in B2B SaaS, or saw you build websites for car dealerships, or whatever, right? Just so we have like some fallbacks and we are at least reaching out to these leads, and some of these are actually loading, and boom, we already have some case studies. Let's go, guys.
Wow.
Right? And in the Clay agent, I would just put in GPT-4 Mini again, and I'd run it. And see, some of these companies are actually showing none. This is because they actually might not have case studies on their site. So simple hack I do, just go in here, go to the formula, and you can either prompt this overall AI to do whatever you want. But if you just understand a little bit of code, you can kind of say, if case study is not equal to none, 1 second. Yep. If case study is not equal to none, output case study, otherwise just leave it blank. Or you can just say it to the AI and it would automatically do it for you. But notice how the none responses are like just gone away, right? And also we have like the other personalization, which is like, so you work with luxury lifestyle and real estate sectors to help them enhance brand presence and connect with audiences through tailored strategies and creative narratives, right? So this is a personalized opener you can straight away use in a campaign. And I can really say that using personalized openers itself would generate you far more positive responses, because now the prospects think that you're at least thinking about them and you're at least researching and you know what do they deal with, right? So that was the thing that I really wanted to dive into. But yeah, and I have a couple of other flows as well that I would want to dive into as well. But just to kind of recap this a little bit, and then we can kind of go into a little bit of questions. So let's say this is a type of personalization we're doing. Similarly, you can just kind of prompt AI in simple plain English in here. Just say what you're looking for. You can say the competitor name, the case study, the local restaurant, or nearby cafe shop, or whatever you want to call out for that particular company, and then kind of do your outreach a little, right? Yeah, please let me know if you have any questions, and then we can quickly go over the other flows. And I know it's a little bit late already, but just bear with me, guys.
Absolutely. One question for you, Bharat, is I've had this question from and one other user as well. So the first question is, how long do you think the email copy should be? Because we say people limiting it to words, a big copy would ruin deliverability, etc. But what are your thoughts? Do you have any recommendation of the size of the copy?
Yeah. So I think the best email copies, in my experience, are the ones when you're reading on your mobile phone, you can actually read in one page without scrolling, right? So within, let's say, even in Smartlead, when you go to the final export view button, you can either look at the mobile phone view directly, or just send a test email to yourself and then just pick up your phone and read through your phone. If the formatting is perfect and you can read without scrolling on your phone, I'd say the size is perfect. Don't overthink it, right? But if you get,
Absolutely. And
but if you
I
got to
think
scroll, that is something that really is a turn off point for some people, because most people just open the emails on their phone, right? So yeah, so sorry for cutting you.
no, no, absolutely. This is exactly what Max Millen General says as well, right? Because when you have your phone, if I would read this cold email, that's the cold email copy that you'd want. And if you would not read it, you can't expect your prospects to read it. So thank you so much, Bharat. Insightful. And in terms of the campaign structure, right? What do you have? Do you have a 4-sequence campaign, a 3-sequence campaign, or do you have any recommendations around that?
Yeah. So I see a lot of people having like long enough sequences, like 7 sequences, 6 sequences. And I think that does not matter, because just based off of experience and real data that I can actually show you guys if you want, the first email always yields more responses and more leads compared to any of the other sequence, right? And the only reason we're sending out email 2 and email 3 is just because there might be some information that might have been missed in the email 1 that we at least want the prospects to be aware of. That's the only reason I would want to send email 2s and email 3s, right? So of course, the sequences I send are typically like 2 or 3 sequences long. But if I wanted to, I would just keep it at one email sometimes, right? Because let's say if I'm experimenting with 3 different campaigns, I would just keep it one email for every single campaign. And as soon as I have a winner, then I'd actually keep it in a 3 sequence step. So we can just have the winner in there. So just like Smartlead's A/B testing, right? In the first email, you can have like A/B test of ABC tests of all the first emails. And then you can have like the second email going after that. So yeah, I won't go beyond 3 for sure.
Understood. Understood. OT was.
Awesome. Cool. So remember I talked about Apify as the primary API database kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Let me just very quickly show you an Apify workflow that I've kind of prepared for you guys, and you'd probably love watching that. So there's this Apify actor, which is like LinkedIn job scraper, right? So we've kind of enriched jobs for existing companies within Clay just right now. But there was existing companies and we're enriching jobs on top of it. We can always find jobs within Clay, but I think that would cost you guys Clay credits. And just as an alternative that you guys can optimize for costs and stuff, this is a actor that I'd recommend. And there are like hundreds of other actors, but I just want to show you how do you actually go through it. So let's say you go to LinkedIn, go to the job section and search in any criteria that you want to, let's say, search for. So I search for GTM engineer and we have a URL. I would just put in the URL in here and I would just hit run. I would just hit in the start and we can already see, like if we hit run, it would take like a couple minutes and then we can see CSVs of the number of results we're exporting. And then if we can go to the output section, oops, one second. So this is loading, but this will probably have like all the details about this particular job listing, like when was the job posted, what are the salary insights, what are they specifically looking for a job, just as we saw in the Clay enrichment thing. And if we have to automate a campaign, so every single week, yeah, we have it here, right? Let's say if I have to automate a campaign, like every single week, we scrape new jobs, we reach them out, enrich them in Clay and send it to Smartlead. This is what I do, right? We just as a very quick mention, Clay already has a native integration of Apify, but if you use this actor, it would give you errors like cell size exceeded because it's like going to be a huge file, right? And that's the reason where you should know about what tools to use and when to use them, because I kind of know Enitin really well. So I can kind of add in Enitin as a step in between Apify and Clay, parse that in one by one, like one row at a time, or like in batches, 10 rows at a time. And then I can send it to the Clay workbook, right? So let me just kind of delete this already. So sorry. And I'm just going to go like a little bit faster because so much to cover, so less time, guys. Yeah. Yeah. So if I just execute this workflow, so this is like just taking that output from that Apify's API that we showed in Clay that isn't really working, that parses that data, takes in loops. So it has like 10 rows at a time. And this is just a webhook to Clay that I'm sending. And we have all of that in webhook data as well. And we can go crazy with this, guys. Like right now, I'm just executing this on manual runs, but I can be like every Tuesday, go to this Apify actor, scrape all the jobs for this particular thing, and then kind of enrich and automatically send to Smartlead, right? So these are the type of campaigns I would surely run if I was running a recruitment company or if I was running a campaign for recruitment companies. But yeah, and sorry. Yeah, in Clay, you can kind of then enrich, personalize all of that stuff as well. And that is really the core crux of, let's say, list building, personalization, and then just intent in general. Because let's say if you say AI, go to a website, and see if they've recently raised a funding round, or you use an API from Crunchbase and you say if they've raised a new funding round. Then you filter only for the companies that have raised a funding round and you say a very specific messaging. I'd say it would do wonders compared to like, hey, first name, quick question, something like that, right? So that is really how you can personalize for any particular thing. And one very, very, very fun example that I love showing people and I love talking about is like sort of like image personalization. And I'm not even sure if we should be running this as if now, because we all know that image kind of hurts the deliverability a little bit. And just in general, if you send HTML in an email, it hurts the deliverability a little bit. But just in my experience, whenever I'm kind of testing things, I'm just testing and really questioning the fundamentals as well sometimes. So let's say if you send the first email and it lands in the primary inbox, and you send an email to and attach an image to that email too, I think, sure, yeah, I get it, there's still a risk of deliverability, but you just have to make a balance. Like, is it worth the risk? Like, are you getting more leads from sending an image or not, right? And of course, I'm just here for a very creative fun idea that I always love to show people. Again, same kind of list from Apollo, just use validated enriched emails. Then there's this tool, where is it? Yeah, there's this tool called Dyna Pictures, and this is an image of me. So it's like I just clicked an image with, one second, a plain piece of paper like this, and I just added that to Dyna Pictures. And in that, I just added, let's say, two text fields. So just some variables, and I don't know why Dyna Picture is loading, but then I'm just able to reference those things in Clay, right? And I've just said simple things like first name, coffee for now. So, but what you can also really do is personalize based on like all the things we've been doing for AI personalization and put those tokens in the image. So let's say, hey, first name, would you want to go for lunch on like at this restaurant? And you can name the restaurant that is like near to their home or near to this company's office, or like it's like pretty much you can go crazy with this, right? But just to like very simple and show you guys that as an example, I'd simply say like first name, coffee, and it's like already like a little bit attractive to eyes and dude, personalized image, right? So it's like kind of fun campaigns. You can always do personalized videos with SensePark and stuff. But yeah, so I'd say the core crux, I'd say, is just like the list you're reaching out to and how you're reaching out to those people and what messages you're saying. But on top of it, just keep experimenting with all these other APIs you see, because in Clay, you can always like map things and just play around, you know? So yeah.
Here you have it, ladies and gentlemen, an outbound system that's powered by real-time data and deep personalization. Thank you so much, Bharatt. Super insightful. And for those of y'all who joined late and who would want a recap of this, the meeting is being recorded. We'll have the video pushed out on Smartlead's YouTube and on Smartlead Slack. Just to keep the drill going, quick round of Q&A. We'll limit it to 5 minutes. We'll have one question each. So those of y'all who have questions, bottom center, react, raise your hand, turn on your video. I'll spotlight you, and you can ask a single question to Bharatt.
Let's meet, guys.
Absolutely, Jordan. Thank you so much for taking the time, Sonny. See you guys. Any questions? Again, react on the center. You'll see an option called raise hands. Click on that. I'll spotlight you. You can ask your questions directly to Bharatt. Any questions? We'll wait for 5 more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Looks like no questions. But thank you so much. Thank you so much for taking the time, people. Bharatt, any closing statements before you go?
Yeah, I'd say just the things we shared, like just the things we kind of covered in this session. Don't just limit yourself to these templates, right? I know I shared like a campaign template in the very beginning, which is like the campaign I sent like day before yesterday. Don't limit yourself to just templates like those, because if everyone were to just write out same templates, it would again just become outdated, right? So I would just say, just really understand what your prospects want, who are your prospects, who are the people you're selling to, and then really craft personalized email sequences for them and write your own templates. Like, templates is something that I'm not a huge fan of, but I just wanted to share just so you have like a little bit idea. So that is one thing I'd say. And the second thing is like, just keep enriching and keep running multiple campaigns. So I'd say some people always, um, I'd say some people kind of run two campaigns for a week and they're like, cold email is not working for my company. And guys, this is not how it works, right? Like, let's say if you were to actually run an entire marketing program, it genuinely takes time a bit. So I'd say, even if you can, let's say, run 6 campaigns and let it run for like 2 weeks, or at least send like 5,000 emails per campaign, then compare the reply rates, and then just have the winning campaigns and um, take the winning campaigns and then just let them run experiments on those, and then just like the best winner of the campaign always wins and sustains, right? So that is the thing that would really help you guys go way ahead in outbound, because that is the statement that I really live by every single day.
Understood. Beautiful. Thank you so much for this, Bharatt. Super insightful session. And for two people who raised hands, sincere apologies. Being respectful of everyone's time, we're already 20 minutes late. So maybe, Bharatt, is it okay if they kind of shoot this question to you on the community? Would that work? Would it be possible? Please, you can find Bharatt on the community. Please feel free to shoot him this question. He'd be more than happy to answer that. But thank you all for taking the time. I'll see you all again next week. As you know, 3 consistent things in life: death, taxes, and office hours every Thursday. And before I go, this is Smartlead's birthday week. Stay tuned. Crazy, crazy offers coming your way. And I'll see you all next week. Ciao. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, guys. Thanks, Akash. Bye.